My first part was to just say thank you to everybody who stepped up, the people who helped me do the text banking, get us out there. It was such a phenomenal turnout. It was such an uplifting experience. So glad everybody made it. And just a heads up, there will be another march this coming Monday, June 15th, 5:30 in White Lake. It's going to start at Hawley Park, Hawley, which is at 7525 Highland Road. Go to the police station and then apparently have a service at the library. So if anybody's interested, we're going to try to get the word out to try to support that march as well. I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Pat Hinsey to introduce our speaker. And I think we're going to have a wonderful evening. This is, let me just say 2 words, well, a couple more than 2. This is a topic I've been pushing for, I think, since I came on the steering committee, because I just watch my friends fry themselves with this work. And now with all the restrictions on our lives, the emotions are so close to the surface and it becomes even more important. So I am so excited to have Ronda here with us tonight and to listen to what she has to say. So have at it, Pat.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. As you remember, some of you, I like to start with a smile. So thanks for coming tonight in the rain. Oh, we didn't go out in the rain. Okay. I am excited to have Ronda Diegel here tonight. I had the privilege a long time ago to work with Ronda through Huron Valley School. She was a school psychologist, and we were never at the same building, almost, Ronda, almost, but it never happened, but I was able to work with her through the district. She's now in private practice. She teaches mindfulness, and I have taken yoga classes from her, and she's a co-founder of the Michigan Enneagram Center. When I invited Ronda, when we talked about having her come tonight, it was almost 5 months ago. And it was to talk to us about self-care because of all the political activities that we would be involved in till November. Well, little did we know that what we would be facing now in our lives with the stronger need for self-care for so many different reasons. And I know Ronda will have all the insight and encouragement to teach us how to take care of ourselves during this stressful time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, when Pat invited me to speak to Indivisible Huron Valley back in January, at that time my mission was to provide you with some wisdom and practices to help you take good care of yourself and sustain the pressures of the upcoming elections, particularly the presidential election. As all of you know, the stakes are high. We made it through almost 4 years of observing the denial of human rights to many of our citizens and those attempting to become citizens. We saw great losses in our global standing and environmental protections. And you, like me, may have experienced intense feelings of fear, horror, anger, and sadness. With another 4 years, many of us wonder if our most valued institutions and our natural resources can survive. So Pat's request felt big, but when I said yes, I'd be happy to talk to your group, I, and I guess you, did not know what was about to hit. So bam, the first pandemic of our lifetime. Am I making you feel better yet? Probably not. It's our first shelter-in-place orders. All of a sudden, we began to feel like characters inside a sci-fi movie. Many of us felt like an invisible, scentless, ominous virus was just waiting to attack when we picked up our mail, grocery shopped, or walked into a building that wasn't our own home. Every time we turned on the news, we saw death rates climb, overwhelmed frontline medical workers, overwhelming unemployment, and such great economic uncertainty. And then there was and is the unlooming uncertainty of the new normal that's sure to emerge as we come out of our homes and begin to re-engage in our communities. Many of my therapy clients and friends asked, is my old life gone forever? So we had Trump, a pandemic, and then wham, less than a month ago, began a series of racially motivated horrific murders. One that we saw on our television screens over and over. We saw George Floyd murdered, and then the heartbreak, rage, and hopelessness felt as protests erupted around the country. And America once again had to look at the byproducts of its ugly, systematic racism. So all of this was happening with no real leadership from the White House, with threats to unleash our military on our citizens. Trump used people's traumas to flex his power muscles, stage strange photo ops, and instead of uniting us, to create further divisiveness and despair. So let's come full circle back to you and your work to elect intelligent, mature, wise, honest, compassionate leaders. Leaders who understand that our interconnectedness, that we are in this together. You may remember this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He said, in a real sense, all life is interrelated. All people are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. What affects one directly affects us all indirectly. So back to self-care. Yes, self-care. Even when so much seems wrong and the subject of self-care may feel strangely indulgent, you, my friends, must treat yourself with the greatest love, kindness, and compassion. This is not the time for burnout. You and your efforts are much too important. I was talking about this with my wonderful friend Jill McDonald, whose name I saw pop up. And she reminded me that this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're in this for the long run. And in order to do that well, we need to take care of ourselves. When I used to run 10Ks, I was often reluctant to stop at the water stands. But it didn't take me long to learn that a little hydration, a little self-care helps sustain me through the long run. So with everything happened, I wondered what I could say to you that would be meaningful rather than trite. Even though we all pretty much know what's good for us, I didn't want to talk for 45 minutes and say what we've all read and heard a zillion times. Eat right, get plenty of sleep, reach out to others. But I will say those things because they're important. And I'll make some other suggestions too. Hopefully with my background in psychology, yoga, and mindfulness, I can bring some insight into why self-care is important from the stance of brain science, trauma psychology, and Eastern philosophy and spiritual practices. But before we dive into brain science, I wanted to share a story from Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my favorite teachers. He said, when the crowded Vietnamese refugee boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained calm and centered, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone to survive. So with self-care, you, I hope, can be the calm, centered one that helps those around you weather the storms, as well as the inevitable pirates or politicians who keep popping up in my news feed. So, okay, let's talk brain science as a lead into self-care. Our brain is made up of three basic groups of structures: the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and the neo-mammalian brain. And each group you'll be quizzed at the end. Each group has a distinct function. As we talk about the brain, I'll borrow a technique from Dr. Dan Diegel, a psychiatrist, neuroscientist, great writer. He's written several books and teachers. So here's the technique. He uses the fist to describe the brain. And this lower part right at the wrist is the reptilian brain, like reptile. And then the thumb is our mammalian brain, and the front where our fingers and knuckles is the neocortex, or the neo-mammalian brain. So I'll talk about all that in more detail, but I like to refer to my fists, so you'll see it again. From an evolutionary perspective, the reptilian brain, our brainstem and cerebellum, governs our most basic body, and note the word body, our most basic body survival functions. So things like breathing, heart rate, hunger, thirst, balance, as well as habits and procedural memory. So procedural memory is doing body movement where you don't have to think about it. So, you know, like when you're walking, you don't think lift one foot, put it down, unless you're doing walking meditation. Lift the other foot, put it down. We just do it naturally. Same with things like riding a bike. So when we experience trauma or we're living in a web of crisis, like many of us feel now, our bodies sense that survival is at stake, and that sense of looming danger becomes locked down in our bodies. We'll start feeling things like an increased heart rate, body and muscle tension, stomach aches, headaches. And if you've ever had a full-fledged panic attack, you know these symptoms well. Or if you've had light panic with some of the symptoms, but not a full panic attack, this will sound familiar. Most of us have had those experiences when we feel our heart really beating, our palms are sweaty. And the thing that's important to know is you can't talk yourself out of that somatic lockdown when the body gets locked down. So flowery affirmations, nice things you might say, like, I am love and light, that's just not going to cut it here. To unlock, we need somatic practices. In other words, we need to do something with our body. And the trauma literature calls these bottom-up strategies. Why bottom up? Again, if you think of the brain, we're working with the lowest part of the brain. So what do these strategies for self-care look like? The first one, and I hope you all got the handout, so this is listed on your handout too. The first one is yoga. And that, of course, I've been teaching yoga for 15 years now, so it's been a long time, and it's very near and dear to my heart. And my own experience of being alive, I practice daily, and it's a very important part of my life, my day. So I can't tell you how many yoga students will come to me after class knowing I'm a psychologist, and they'll say to me, that was better than 10 years of therapy. And there's a reason, and that reason is more than just a good stretch. Bessel van der Kolk, who's one, if not the leading researcher on trauma, did a study and found that yoga was more effective than antidepressant medication in decreasing feelings of depression and anxiety. In a recent article about COVID-19, he wrote, if you don't move your body, your soul will rot. After all, a big part of the definition of trauma is immobility. So I know the yoga studios are all closed now, and while there are some outdoor classes available, I suspect that our Michigan yoga studios will open around the 1st of July. But if you need a class, please, or if you need a class because your studio isn't providing any offering, or you just would like to try yoga, take a look at your handout, and I gave you a couple of links to a few of my really gentle, soothing, anyone can do them yoga classes. So I hope you enjoy those. The second of the somatic practices that I listed is diaphragmatic breathing. And you do this breathing in yoga, but if you're physically unable to participate in a yoga class, or you don't like yoga, it's not your jam, deep breathing is still a wonderful tool for self-care. So what I'd like to do with you now is just briefly teach you how to do diaphragmatic breathing. And to do that, you place a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly. So everybody, hand on heart, hand on belly. Just connect to that central channel of energy. And then with your inhale, you'll bring breath in through the nose and let it travel all the way down to the bottom of your belly. So your belly will distend at the end of the inhale. So instead of breathing through the chest, where the chest pops out, it's the belly that pops out. Good. And then when you exhale, you can either pour the breath out through your nose or act like you're blowing out a straw with your lips. And then exhale, let go of the breath completely. Draw the navel up and back toward the spine so that the belly flattens. So let's just do that a couple times. Inhale through the nose, feel the belly distend. Exhale, pour breath out through nose or mouth, navel up and back towards the spine. Just a few more times. You might even close your eyes here and really follow the rhythm, the pattern, the movement of your breath. Okay, very nice. At least I think it's very nice. I can't see anyone. But when you breathe in this way, you're regulating or calming your entire nervous system while you nourish your cells with oxygen. It's important to know that the reptilian brain is, when the reptilian brain is calmed, that we can move to our higher order, more rational thinking. So when the reptilian brain is going nuts, like it's the body's locked down there, you can't come up to this part of the brain and think rationally. That's why when people are in a state of panic, they can't talk themselves out of it. The breath, very, very helpful. If this type of breathing is new to you, there's also a link on your handout so that you can practice. And you know, one of the really nice things about breathing is that it doesn't have to look weird. We don't need a lot of space or time to do it. I've had a series of bad accidents in the winter where other cars hit me. It was never my fault. So this happened 3 winters in a row. And sometimes still on icy roads, I can get that feeling of panic come up. And I just breathe. I do this deep breathing. If I'm at a stoplight or a stop sign or stop before, I live around a zillion traffic circles. Stopped at a traffic circle, I'll just do my diaphragmatic breathing. And I can almost, it's like palpable, the sense of my body relaxing so that I can think clearly. The third somatic strategy that I want to talk about is walking or hiking in nature. And I can honestly say that walking saved me during our first 2 months of COVID. In snow and rain, I'd still go out in my big down jacket and walk 2 to 5 miles a day through a forest that's close to my house. I live on Richardson in Newton, and behind the Richardson Center, there's this very pretty forested area. So that hour that I'd spend at my feet really did wonders for both my spirit and my sanity. And I want to stress that any physical practice that's done on a regular basis is an amazing gift of care and kindness to your nervous system. So whether it's swimming, biking, tennis, which is a really good socially distanced sport, kickboxing, whatever it is that you enjoy doing, all wonderful. So beginning to move your body, one of the most important things you can do when you're feeling overwhelmed. So as we work from the bottom up and come to the next group of brain structures, we'll talk about the limbic system. That's the thumb in this model. A structure that's deep in the limbic system, you might think about it as my thumbnail, is called the amygdala. And it's often referred to as a smoke alarm for our nervous system. So when we anticipate that something bad is about to happen, it activates, and it's like it's screaming, danger, danger, danger. And Dan Siegel, who developed this model, will say, when that happens, we flip our lid. So again, this is where we think rationally. We can't think rationally because this little guy is just going nuts. screaming at us, just like a fire alarm. So when we, a part of our nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system will rev up and we move into fight, flight, or freeze. When this happens, full-fledged panic may occur. And I talked about breathing when we discussed somatic activities in the reptilian brain, but breath is also critical to calming the nervous system and the amygdala. Deep breathing can flip our sympathetic revved up nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system, and you don't need to know this terminology, but when we do that, we move from fight, flight, or freeze to a state that psychologists will call rest and digest, or tend and befriend. So from fight or flight to rest and digest, or tend and befriend. So we're able to activate our social networks, and we're able to do body functions that we can't do when our smoke alarm's firing. So here are some other self-care strategies that are particularly kind to your mammalian or your emotional brain. First of all, stay connected with others. You may remember a Motown song by Marvin Gaye and Kim Weston called "It Takes Two." So there's a lyric in that song that says, "One can stand alone in the dark, but two can make the light shine through." So this is a good time to reach out and let that light shine. Now, speaking of reaching out, I thought I would see your face, so I was gonna have you wave your hand, but I can't see you. So you don't have to, but just reflect on the questions. How many people have had your first Zoom call since we had our shelter at home orders? How many of you have been on Zoom more than you ever imagined possible? That for sure is me. Lots of time on Zoom. Yeah, so fortunately, technology has allowed us to reach out and stay connected and provide nurturance, care, and concern for those in our sphere. Evolutionary psychologists say it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the nurtured. And this is really, really a good time to nurture one another. I heard Tara Brach, who's a wonderful, wise psychologist and Buddhist meditation teacher, tell a story that I love. It's about the healing power of connection. So here's the story. A little boy was scared during a thunderstorm. He kept going to his parents' room, and they'd put him back to bed and in his own room. "You're safe, you're fine, God is with you," his father kept saying. After a number of rounds of this, the little boy said to his father, "Dad, I know God is with me, but I want someone with skin on." So, and we really all need that connection, whether it's on the screen or in your home. Stay connected to those wonderful fellow humans that have skin. And then also in the realm of connection, it's really enlivening when you can help someone in need. So whether it's sending a card to someone in a nursing home or reaching out to a neighbor, leaving food on their doorstep, whatever you can do, our reaching out helps us reconnect with our sense of resilience and empowerment. The other thing I want to say about the emotional brain, well, there's a couple of things, but one thing that I think is really important is to give your emotions some space and to remember whatever you feel is okay. So if you feel sad, angry, joyful, worried, it's all okay. There's a little formula in Buddhist psychology that I love, and I wrote it on your handout. It's written like a mathematical equation. Pain times resistance equals suffering. So we will inevitably feel some unpleasant emotion during this time period. Neuroscientists report that the physiological lifespan of an emotion in the body and the brain is 90 seconds. 90 seconds. The sensations, adrenaline, heat in the face, tightness in the throat, rapid heartbeat, they arise, peak, and dissipate on their own. So you can take good care of yourself by allowing yourself just 90 seconds of emotion. Now people, and this often is a big complaint when people come into therapy, is that their bad emotions last for days. They ruminate, they go through them over and over and over again. They'll keep us up at night. We feel flooded with shame, all kinds of aftermath of difficult emotions. So if emotions only have a shelf life of 90 seconds, why is that? Why do they keep us up at night? What keeps emotions lingering are the stories that we tell ourselves about them. And usually our stories are something like the situation should be other than what it is. Believe me, I told myself that story a lot in the last 3 weeks. Or that a person or ourselves, that we should have behaved differently. These stories are the resistance in that formula. So pain times resistance equals suffering. That's the resistance, the story. We don't want to feel it. And so we start creating these stories around whatever is painful. And that leads to our suffering. The stories are what keeps our difficult emotions alive. Now, you'll be surprised if you don't resist, but just notice how quickly you will shift and come back to equilibrium. And if this is hard for you, and it is for most of us, mindfulness meditation is a great training for allowing emotions to just be. It's like in mindfulness, we learn to be our own humanistic therapists. So I'll briefly discuss mindfulness a little bit more when we get to the very top of the brain. Also, as we work with the emotional brain to calm heightened sensitivities and turn off that amygdala smoke alarm, consider allowing your creativity to flow. Creative endeavors help us to express and release what is sometimes not accessible verbally. You might draw, paint, sculpt, sing, play an instrument, whatever it is that lights you up. And then another way to be creative is dance. And of course, dance is a great somatic strategy too. In an article about coping with COVID-19, Peter Levine, who's another well-known trauma therapist who really works a lot with the body, he says a good way to shift the nervous system to relaxed alertness is to invite some movement and music into your lives. You could dance with a partner if you're in the same house, or with someone over video, or just dance by the window and get everybody in the neighborhood dancing. As quickly as possible, we want to move out of a state of perceiving only threat, because it's tremendously stressful and it probably reduces our immunity to infections. So let's move to what's considered the top of the brain, the cerebral neocortex, or the neo-mammalian cortex. So we're up here at the knuckles of the fingers, and only primates have neocortexes, so we're special in the neocortex department. So the neocortex is responsible for things that make us distinctly human, things like meaning making, willpower, and wisdom, analysis, problem solving, speech and verbal understanding. And I want to note that even though we may be very bright and knowledgeable, when we don't care for ourselves, when we haven't taken care of our somatic, our body needs and our emotional needs, when we're in a state of panic or trauma, the cognitive verbal brain goes offline, and our memories get stored in the somatic sensory part of the brain. And that's why highly traumatized people often have no memory of the trauma. The memories have been stored in their body, and initially can only be accessed through the body. So when you're in that kind of panic, we have trouble accessing skills like attention, focus, speech, those skills that make us wise, compassionate, and humane. We want our neocortex to be functioning so that we can make thoughtful, kind, skillful decisions. And here are some self-care strategies that can help us care for the neocortex. So the first one I put on our list was to read and write. And you may journal, write poetry, start or maintain a blog. This pandemic has been so unique in our history, and words help give meaning to difficult times. As time goes on, I look forward to seeing how many of my favorite writers make meaning of what's going on now. Indulge yourself in the written word, read authors that light you up, read those novels that have been piling up by your bedside. I was recently reading an article about grief and loss, and it's a relatively new book. It was by, I can't remember the psychologist's name, but he wrote with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in the past. But he said that people often had the wrong idea of how to, they thought that the stages of grief, that you had to move those through those in order, and then there would be the resolution and the grief is finished. And he said, it's not that, it doesn't work that way. But what he put really as the final stage, and the thing that helps people move on without a sense of permanent stuckness, is if they can make meaning of what's happening. So words help give us meaning and help lighten our loads. The second strategy for our neocortex is meditation. And if you've never meditated or you've struggled with meditation, you're not alone. It's good to know that there are great online guided meditations. One of my favorite meditation tools is Insight Timer. It's a free app and contains over 24,000 guided meditations. And before we started, Henry mentioned Headspace, which is another app with lots of meditations, and people have had lots of success with it. So the thing I always tell people, my clients and my students that are starting with meditation, is it's simple, but it's not easy. But it's worth the challenge. The research on meditation, particularly mindfulness meditation, is stunning in terms of the positive impact on your sense of well-being and the strengthening of your critical brain structures. So what's mindfulness? The therapeutic definition of mindfulness that I use, that I like, and it's very simple, is it's paying attention to the present moment with an attitude of acceptance. So how does that tie in with accepting your emotions? A difficult emotion comes up. Maybe it's something you're really uncomfortable with, like jealousy. And rather than resisting it and having it lead into suffering, like I'm a bad person because I'm jealous, you just begin to notice how it feels. And within 90 seconds, it usually leaves. And then you move on to a different sense. So, or you move on to a different thought or sensation or way of being. So just learning to pay attention to what's happening in the moment. One particular type of meditation that I love and I return to often in difficult times is called loving kindness meditation. This too comes from the Buddhist tradition. And let's see, in the early 2000s, there was a study done at the University of Wisconsin where Buddhist monks who had decades of loving kindness practice behind them underwent functional MRIs while they were doing loving kindness and compassion meditation practices. And the results really provided a compelling argument for loving kindness. The left prefrontal cortex, that area of the brain that's associated with compassion and empathy, significantly lights up on imaging. And structures that encourage compassion strengthen. when I get riled up by what's happening in the world, or I've overdosed on news, I try and do a loving kindness meditation. And I don't always do it when I'm in seated meditation. Sometimes I'll do it when I'm walking through the woods. What is loving kindness? It's repeating phrases where you wish yourself and others happiness, peace, health, and safety. And on your handout, I have a loving kindness meditation that I recorded a couple months ago for one of my yoga studios. And there's also many, many other really beautiful loving kindness meditations on Insight Timer or Headspace or YouTube. And you'll find them all over the internet. Very, very helpful. Another kind of meditation that I think is really beautiful and that is a part of my life, I incorporate it often, is self-compassion meditation. You know, we can be so hard on ourselves, especially when we're really feeling driven towards a goal and obstacles come up. Can just, that inner critic inside our head can get very, very noisy. So if we have time at the end of this talk, I can teach you a simple self-compassion exercise, one that I use often when I hear those critical voices in my head. But if we don't have time, I gave you the link to Chris Germer's Self-Compassion Break on your resource sheet. And Chris is also a psychologist and mindful teacher and co-founder of Mindfulness-Based Self-Compassion, where he's been training teachers all over the world. He was one of my teachers when I did a psychotherapy and mindfulness year-long program, and a leading teacher in promoting the benefits of self-compassion. So I think you'll enjoy his meditation. I mentioned loving kindness meditation as an antidote for news overdose. And I know this is common sense, but do try to stay off or limit news outlets that trigger more anxiety and trauma. And make sure you check the most reliable sources of information. We often check the news in a defensive posture, but too much challenging news can take us right down to the limbic system and move us into that state of fight or flight, where the body really revs up and we just can't think clearly. Another strategy for our neocortex is to connect with your spiritual practices. So remember how important I mentioned making meaning is. Spirituality helps us make meaning of the nonsensical. People define spirituality in all kinds of ways. To me, spirituality is dropping our ego self and experiencing our connection to something better. It's not, rather, something bigger than our isolated self. So spirituality doesn't necessarily mean connection to a religious institution, although it may. Some of the most compassionate spiritual people I know consider themselves humanistic atheists. Connection with nature, entrusted others, meditation, creativity, prayer, your worship community, all of these allow us to transcend and make meaning out of adversity. One last strategy for our neocortex, and that's gratitude. So I didn't even have gratitude on my list, but about a week ago, I was listening to Detroit Today on WDET, and it's a call-in talk show, and John Henderson, who I think is wonderful, he hosted and covers all kinds of topics. So the topic that day was psychological concerns during this time of COVID-19. And a nurse called in who was not on the front line with COVID, but was doing other work and was talking about her guilt at not being one of the people on the front line. But she said that one of the strategies that she was using was gratitude. And I was really moved when I was listening to her call. It was a really powerful reminder that something wonderful happens when we pay attention to what we have rather than what we don't have. Rick Hansen, who's one of my favorite neuropsychologists. He wrote a book called Buddha's Brain. And he has an expression that I think is great. He says, our brains are like Teflon for good experiences and Velcro for bad experiences. Gratitude helps us hold on to what is good, creating new neural pathways. So when we can really take in the good, pay attention to the good things that happen around us, and hold on to that good, we actually change our brains. This is called neuroplasticity, and we calm our nervous system. Very important. So I'll wrap up this discussion with an integrated approach to self-care. And that's one that nourishes our entire brain and hits many of the practices that we've addressed. This comes from Dr. Dan Siegel. He's the FIST guy. And so Dan Siegel, along with Dr. David Rock, articulated 7 daily essential mental activities to optimize brain matter and create a sense of well-being. I could spend an entire 45 minutes on these alone. So for more information about the Healthy Mind Platter, please follow the link on your handouts. But very briefly, here are the essentials. So one is focus time. That's when we focus on tasks in a goal-oriented way. We take on challenges that make deep connections in the brain. Secondly, playtime. When we allow ourselves to be spontaneous or creative, playfully enjoying novel experiences, we help make new connections in the brain. Connecting time. We talked a lot about this. When we connect with other people, ideally in person, and when we take the time to appreciate our connection to the natural world around us, we activate and reinforce the brain's relational circuitry. Physical time, we also talked about that quite a bit. When we move our bodies aerobically, if medically possible, we strengthen the brain in many ways. Time in, this is meditation. When we quietly reflect internally, focusing on sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, we help to better integrate the brain. And when we are the next one is downtime. This is the one I have to remind myself of often. When we're non-focused, without any specific goal, and let our mind wander or simply relax, we help the brain recharge. And then finally, sleep time, the 7th. When we give the brain the rest it needs, we consolidate learning and recover from the experience of the day. So I'll end the formal part of this talk with a quote from Audre Lorde, who is a self-described Black lesbian mother, warrior, poet. She wrote, this is in quotes, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." So you heard that right. Self-care is political, self-care is not indulgent, and self-care is necessary. And again, I'm so grateful for the work you do. It was really exciting for me to learn about your organization, your advocacy for social justice, civil rights, equal economic opportunities, a healthy environment, education, healthcare, and so many other important issues. Please continue to take care of yourself and each other. Our world needs you. So in yoga, we end every class with the word namaste. This means that the light in me bows and honors that same light in you. So namaste and thank you.
Thank you so much. There's really not enough time. So please, if you have workshops, share them with us, and we would love to share them with the membership. So,
okay. I will say that I think I'm doing a yoga benefit in White Lake on, let me just double check.
Perfect.
on July 11th to raise money probably for Black Lives Matters, the Detroit chapter. But
Okay.
we may split it with others. So I will send that information in as soon as we get our flyer made up.
That would be wonderful. That would be perfect. And we did have one question in the chat that wanting to know where you teach yoga normally.
Okay, well, normally
You know, we don't
I'm in
normal.
studios. I've been teaching it in my basement a lot. One of the videos you see is down in a little meditation room in my basement. But I normally teach at Body Language, which is in Commerce Township, next to the Dairy Queen. And then I teach in Royal Oak at Namaste. So that's a little further for you guys.
Well, this was truly wonderful, Rhonda. Thank you so much for giving.
Oh, you're welcome.
Your generosity is so appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope to work with you guys in the future. It's just
that would be
a really amazing group.
Because we really need to continually remind ourselves to take care of ourselves. As we said, you know, so that we're not giving the people we hold near and dear what's left over. We're giving them what's best in ourselves. So thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Rhonda.
You're welcome. Did you guys want any questions, or you're all okay?
Well, nothing showed up in the chat. I think there's a lot to process for people, but we will be sure and get your handout. We usually do. John is our amazing newsletter guy, and he will do a recap of the meeting, and we'll be sure to include the link again for the handouts so people have all of those handouts.
Okay, thank you again. Take care.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
And just so everybody knows, the handout she's talking about was in our email that you registered to join this meeting in.
Right. Maybe we can put it in the recap mailing too, just as a reminder.
For sure, yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks.
All right. Now the less fun part. I'm feeling so relaxed. Your voice is so calming.
Thank you.
I'm just like, don't really want to go on to team reports, but I guess we have to.
Okay, well, I will, I'll leave you all, but once again, thank you for inviting me. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to lead off because I'm going to do the leadership team report, and there's not a lot to report except that we've had a little shift in positions on the steering committee, and Henry has decided that he is going to reactivate our action team, which will become the community action team. You know, he'll have a few words to say about that instead of doing the co-chair position. So I'm not taking that personally. I think he's figured out where his strengths are, and we need to use him there. I think he's shown us he has an awesome ability to do that sort of thing with the caravans that we've had and the different things that he's really pushed us to do. So I think that's wonderful. But if you know somebody you think would be interested in being on the leadership team, if you yourself are interested in, please get in touch. Let one of the people on the steering committee know that that's something you'd be interested in. And that's all I have to say about the leadership team, and I will pass it along to the wrong piece of paper up. The legislative action team, Connie.
That was really wonderful. That she did a great job. And I'm relaxed too. Anyway, legislative action team. We are actually the kitchen cabinet now for the Denise Forrest campaign. And we've really decided that we've really worked in the last few months to really create a solid base for our kind of organization so that we function between the different positions and the different things that we have to accomplish. We all took a lot of classes, and we all feel like we understand how, you know, what the basics are for getting a great candidate elected. First thing I want to do is thank everybody who did postcards. We are pretty much through the first campaign of postcards. We've mailed out, well, we haven't mailed out, we mailed out about 5,000 postcards. We have distributed to postcard writers another 7,000 postcards. So At the end of June, we'll be sending those out. So there'll be like 11,000 postcards that we will have done. And so you guys rocked it for that. Now, our biggest need now is for phone bankers. Our first run of phone banking is about 2,700 voters that we have to call. We've had about 7 phone banks and we've called approximately 6% of that number. So we're averaging about 7 volunteers per phone bank, but we need more. We need, in order to finish this on time at 3 phone banks a week, we need more like 10 to 14 phone bankers per session to get through that list. In July we really want people to start now, because right now we're calling friendly, strong Democrats, mostly strong Democrats, and we're looking for more volunteers. And so we feel like that is the way for people to kind of get used to phone banking. So that's kind of why we're encouraging people to start now to phone bank. In July, we'll be calling more voters that need to be persuaded. And we're doing that with the goal in mind of calling approximately another 2,500 people of just absentee voters. And it might even be more than that, because we're trying to get, well, we're anticipating that the absentee voting is going to be tripled for this election because of the pandemic. And because they sent out absentee ballot applications. So we're going to be we're going to probably have to increase the number of phone banks and increase the number of volunteers in order to get to all those voters. So please sign up to phone bank. We also have a couple of open positions that we need on our leadership team. One is an event coordinator. So if you would like to participate in the election by really taking on some leadership and helping us as an event coordinator, that would be super helpful. Right now we have Missy Savin, who's doing event coordinating and volunteer coordinating for White Lake and Waterford. So she's got like double duty right now. And so we really need somebody to do that, to help with the event coordinating. We also need someone to help with fundraising coordinating. Fundraising is like a big deal for campaigns. We need a lot of money to keep going. We need to pay for printed material, for banners. We need to pay for more stamps, and we want to be able to do a couple of mail outs if we possibly can. So we really need a fundraising coordinator. And we need a couple of, actually, I've been saying we need phone bank hosts, but what we need is phone bank teachers. And I know there's a lot of teachers out there in our community. So we will provide all the training, and you will have exactly what you need in order to teach phone banking. So please let us know by going to the website or giving me a call or getting in touch on Facebook. We have a lot of ways to get in touch. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Denise. Denise is here, and she has a couple of words for us also.
Great. Well, I see there's some names of folks that I don't know. So I'm Denise Forrest. I'm running for state representative from Michigan's 44th district. I am the best candidate going on either side of the ballot. So I'm a former teacher, I'm a union president, I'm currently on our Huron Valley School Board. I stand for quality education, and in this age of so much strife, it's clear that we need an equitable education for our students across Michigan. So we need to treat all our kids the same with the same amount of money, which isn't enough. And I stand for clean air and water and some good old common sense government. I said this at a meeting last night. We certainly have some irrational folks out there, both in our state and our federal government. So common sense government, compassion, and inclusivity is what I bring to the table. We are on a roll, as Connie said. We are looking for phone bankers. That's the name of the game, since we cannot go door to door quite yet. Maybe I'm being a little bit hopeful, or the glass is half full, but maybe we'll get there eventually. And if I don't have a lot of time now, but if you guys want to know what I'm about, we're having Ask the Candidate Anything next Wednesday, a week from tonight, from 7 to 8 o'clock, and you can sign up for that. It is a free event, yay, but I can always use donations. Campaigns are expensive. So next Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m., I love to chat, so come and learn more about me and ask me some questions that I will answer for you. And if I don't have the answer, I will get it for you. That's what a good teacher does. So I put my information in the chat, and you can sign up on Facebook for phone banking and on the 17th for Ask Me Anything, and that's Vote For Us with 2 R's 44 on Facebook, and then my website is voteforust44.org. And I see that Jonathan posted my Act Blue secure donation link. So let's get this done, everybody. Thank you, Indivisible, and thank you, Connie. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, we have 3 speakers waiting in the wings, so we have 2 more team reports to go. Sherry, Democracy 2020.
Okay, I'll move right along. Thanks everyone for your kind donations to Indivisible Huron Valley, especially those ones that were matched by Indivisible. Because of that, Indivisible National, we are spending that money on a few things in our Democracy 2020 team. The first thing we've done, also a big thank you for those of you who responded when our committee called you on the phone and asked you to volunteer. So we got quite a good number of people that were willing to volunteer to work for our 2 adopted candidates, Denise and Julia Pulver. So thanks for that. One of the things we're spending the money on are values signs. Janet helped us order signs that are like campaign signs, but they have vote, and then they have our values under it, like empathy, civility, honesty, 3 values on each side. And those signs will be used when we do something very visible in the community in high traffic areas around our candidates that we're supporting, their signs, and we can use them over and over again. So thank you for your donations for that. We're also ordering from Swim is doing a vote absentee campaign. So we're ordering several of those signs, which will be put in very strategic places to urge people to vote absentee. We've got one postcard initiative going right now outside of the candidate postcards. This one is called Postcards for Michigan, and it's being run by Indivisible Chicago, which is doing a terrific job helping turn Michigan and Wisconsin blue. And that will be on Tuesday, and you'll be able to see it on a website. So if it sounds like a broken record, we're going to be saying over and over and over again, please go to our website, www.indivisiblehv.com. Go there. Any questions, especially if you're not on Facebook, all of the questions you need to know about what we're doing. Our postcard campaigns there's a calendar that Nancy Check has set up that is awesome. Go to it. Any day of the week, you can hit a link and you can find out all the different ways you can earn somethings and really help our candidates win in November. So please take advantage of that. But this particular campaign, we've ordered about 800 of these postcards, and they will be in packets for people to pick up on Allison Rose's front porch on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And if you want to know where her address is, you can go on our webpage and find all this information, but it's postcards@indivisiblehv.com, and we'll give, or you can contact someone on the steering committee and we'll give you her address so you can get involved in that. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, Henry, new committee, Community Action Team.
The new committee is called the Community Action Team, or CATS. The goal of that committee first is to get together a group of people who can help us formulate a dashboard for what any new committee coming on, who wants to come under our umbrella. And we create this dashboard. So if there's a new committee would want to be under our umbrella, we would issue this dashboard to them, have them fill it out, send it back to us. If it meets our criteria, then we would, I'm assuming, pass it on to the steering committee, or to give a yay or nay to it. But we're just trying to vet different groups that come into that want to be under our umbrella. So that's basically my vision for right now, and hopefully it gets off the ground. If you want to be a part of that committee, I'm not sure, John, how we have people maybe email you or me. How would I do that?
They can either go through the Indivisible the website. They can go through info@indivisiblehv.com. That's an email to our group.
Maybe here's an easier one. H. McCurry, 49.
They can to the chat. That'll be good.
Okay.
Then they
I'll do that.
And John just put up the one that they can use through the Indivisible group.
Okay. And I'll put it in the chat, if they want to be involved.
Yeah.
Secondly, on Saturday of this week, we have a different kind of a form that says Saturday morning after the meeting. And at that form this Saturday, we'll get together to try to assimilate or bring this information we're receiving today into maybe some sort of a summary. And then with that particular summary, we'll then send it to John, and he can post it for, a collective ideas from the thousands of people that show up every Saturday for your perusal. Because oftentimes in these big meetings, people don't feel comfortable sharing information, asking questions, but ours is a little more informal, that we kind of get together and share things. Also, you would have an opportunity to say, is there a chance the Indivisible can investigate a different topic and present it to us at another time? I know we're into the big election season, but just like we had tonight, self-care, are there other things that you want to see happening with Indivisible? So that's about it for my report.
Perfect.
And hope to see you Saturday.
Thank you very much. Great. Okay, so the next person who's going to do her little brief spiel, because she's in the middle of training people to be volunteers and all kinds of good stuff, is Natasha Nielsen. She took a break from that to come talk to our group from the Michigan One campaign. And she asked for just a few minutes to kind of catch us up on what's going on there. Sure.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me. First off, I just want to say that I've been in your Facebook group for the past month, and I've been seeing all the awesome work you guys do as a group, and it's really exciting to see. But to get started, just a little bit about me. So I am a field organizer for the Michigan One campaign, and I am part of the Western Oakland County region, and I specifically take care of Milford and many cities that you guys are in and from. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing right now as a campaign. So we are the official coordinated campaign, and that means that we work, to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. And right now we are officially coordinated with Senator Gary Peters and Vice President Joe Biden. So we are currently doing remote phone banks for both of them, which is really exciting because we're actually the only part of a campaign that calls for Senator Gary Peters, which is a very, very tight race. And so I am here to ask you all to join a couple of things. One, I want you to come phone bank with us at least once this month, because a lot of people don't know who Senator Gary Peters is. And I know you guys do a lot of down ballot work, but we are still a little bit worried about Senator Gary Peters' seat, and we do need all the help to get his name out there. And yeah, so we would love for you to come join us. And I'm gonna drop like in the chat my contact info so you can reach out to me. But I would love if people could, you know, say like, hey, like I'm gonna come to this time in the chat. And that way I can kind of see, you know, some interest, and, you know, maybe you guys can plan a time to come together, because I would love to train you all as a group. And essentially the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about is next Wednesday, if you're a little unsure about the campaign and want more information, we are doing a strategy session, which is basically a dialogue between us organizers of Western Oakland County and volunteers, and kind of just a little hangout to talk about the one campaign moving forward, especially as you know, we've been hearing tonight, we're talking a lot about when are we going to go in person, things like that. So I would love to have you guys come to that. And one last thing before I, you know, keep talking your ears off, we have a Facebook group in, you know, it's basically just like an Oakland County little headquarters group. So this way you can stay up to date to events and things like that. So if you'd love to be a part of it, I'm going to drop the link in the chat so everyone can get to join that. You just have to request access and someone will approve it. And I also included the strategy session sign up link so that you can sign up to join. And I would love to see many of your faces. It would make me so happy, because we do really need to work hard for Senator Gary Peters' seat. It's not a given. And also, I mean, the presidential campaign is obviously important. We only have a once in 4-year opportunity to do this. So we need all the attention we can get all over the place. Does anyone have any initial questions for me? I'm happy to answer for the group.
So I had asked in the questions, but I want to know how far down the ballot the one campaign is going to go. I'm running for county commissioner, and it never seems to go that far down.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't do all the logistics of those kinds of things, to be honest, but basically how coordinating with the one campaign works is essentially is we have to, you know, sign a contract, and there's a bunch of kind of exchange of money involved. So that is kind of how it works to get involved with the campaign. If you want to sign up to call voters and you want to say, hey, like I'm running for county commissioner on the phone, I'm not going to stop you. Like, you can feel free to kind of plug yourself on the phone. The only thing is we cannot, like, as a campaign officially endorse contested primaries or anything like that. Like if there's multiple Democrats running for a seat before August, like that's the one thing we don't interfere with. But after August, you'll see a lot more coordination as well. And I am hoping that we get to coordinate more down the ballot, because right now we don't even have our fabulous congresswomen on the on our script, but we obviously very much care about them. So yeah, so that is kind of the answer to your question. But you know, if you want to send me your contact info, I'm also happy to like pass along information. You can, you know, talk to someone who's a little higher up than me about that kind of thing.
Great, thank you so much, Natasha. It's also really wonderful to see people your age this much involved. So, because our it's kind of be the average look. So it's really good. So thank you, and hopefully people will be getting in touch. So our next speaker was to be Lori Savin. Are you here, Lori? I didn't see her in the list of participants.
I am here, Liz.
There you are. Oh, good. Oh, good. Because I know you had another commitment that you were juggling everything. So this is the lovely Lori Savin, who is running for, dun, 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 we're so excited, Oakland County Circuit Court. And she made a good run at it the last time, right? And going at it again. And my husband and I have had a couple of lovely conversations with her when she's come to our meetings. So I am happy to share her with the group. So you're on, Lori.
Thank you so much, Liz. And I want to give a shout out to Sherry too, that made sure that everything worked out for me to be able to speak to you tonight. I know it's been a long day for everybody. So the fact that you've got, I saw like somewhere around 30 people on this call interested in making a difference and willing to hear me. I just want to thank you really much. Or really much. That's how long of a day it's been, very much. So I'm Lori Savin, and I am running for an open seat on the Oakland County Circuit Court. If you haven't heard the spiel beforehand, there is a judge that is retiring. So there's an opportunity to run without having an incumbent to worry about. Judge Gant is also running in a separate slot of the ballot because she is running to finish her term. Since she was appointed, she has to run to be retained, and nobody's challenging her. So I'm in a different slot as her. I have 2 opponents, which means we will be on the ballot August 4th in the primary, and then the top 2 vote getters will go on to the general election. I didn't know whether or not I was going to have a primary till recently because I turned in, we need 4,000 signatures. I turned in well over 5,000 by mid-March, but the deadline got extended and the number of signatures were decreased. So I do have 2 competitors on the ballot. So a little bit about me, but I do want to have the opportunity to answer questions that your membership may have. So I've been a lawyer now. It's my 25th anniversary from graduating law school this year and passing the bar. In fact, I think it was just my anniversary about a month ago from graduating. And in the period of time that I've practiced, the majority of my work has been in the family court and in juvenile court. So representing people in divorces, custody, parenting time, paternity, abuse and neglect cases, and juvenile court delinquency cases. I worked for about 4 years at a nonprofit where my sole job was to represent children that were involved in the juvenile court system because their parents weren't properly caring for them or they had gotten into some legal trouble themselves. And that was my favorite, the best job ever, because if there is ever a side you want to be on when you go to court, any sort of case, it's the kids' side. My job was to advocate for them and what's best for them, and that was the best job ever. For the past 17 years, I have been a referee at the Oakland County Circuit Court's Family Division. We have an office called the Friend of the Court, and basically our family court judges just don't have nearly enough time in the day, even if they never slept and worked every weekend, to hear every case that comes before the family court. So what that means is they need to have other people, which is where a referee comes in, to have a lot of the hearings for them. And I hear motions when people need to change custody or parenting time, child support. Maybe a parent has to move out of state because of some, a job change or things like that. I also enforce the court's orders when it comes to children. And I have to tell you, during the pandemic, that has been the bulk of the work that we've really seen. You can't imagine how many people are depriving a parent of seeing their child because they think that the courts just aren't going to do anything during the pandemic, and there's nothing further from the truth. So I'm running for judge because I believe that my experience practicing family law and juvenile court work, especially as a hearing officer where I've done hearings, I've shown that I have the patience judges need, that I have the ability and the compassion, and won't be tired whether you're the first case of the day or the last case of the day, about hearing your story and trying to make the best decision I can for your family and your children. Because that's really why I do my job. I want to make a positive difference in the lives of the families that we serve in the court in Oakland County. Just to give you a little bit of an example about why experience matters, especially in this area of the law, is I was talking to a judge earlier today who's endorsing me. And he was asking me what was going on in the court, in the family court, because he was in practice in that area. And I told him about how a lot of parents are denying parenting time. And he goes, what do you even do? And the reality is right now, we are very, very averse to putting people in jail. All of the judges don't want to put people in jail if they can help it, because COVID is rampant through the jails. And we don't want to do that to anybody. But the threat of jail, even when you're not going to follow through, is one of the most effective tools when you really have to use it to get somebody to comply with a court order. So what I talked about is that I've never found threat of jail to be terribly effective when it comes to enforcing parenting time. One of the most effective and creative tools, and not a lot of people know that it's in the law or use it, is community service. We are permitted to order somebody to do community service. And I had somebody earlier this week that just put her foot down, and even though I said, and the judge already said, if you don't do the parenting time, the dad is going to get 2 days of parenting time for every 1 day he missed. And that wasn't good enough for her. That wasn't going to change her mind. And I said, not only are we looking at double makeup parenting time, you're looking at community service. Every day you deny him parenting time, you will be out there with the orange vest, cleaning up trash with your bag lunch, making a difference in our community. Because I know that that's not a fun job, and she didn't think there'd be consequences, but there is a consequence. And that seems to have turned the situation around. So I know that you need somebody that's really worked in these difficult situations to find creative solutions to help parents raise their children. I have a lot of involvement outside of my job as well in improving the legal system. Just 2 things I want to point out that are important to me that tell you a little bit about my values and what I find is important. The first is that I have been a member of the State Bar's Judicial Ethics Committee. I'm the referee representative for the entire state of Michigan on that committee, and we work at trying to develop opinions and help educate judges, referees, and magistrates so that they know and get better direction and advice about how to do their job ethically, not create conflicts, and not cause people to lose faith in the judicial system because they're not treating somebody properly. Because I've been on that committee for about a decade, which really is kind of crazy to me because so many people that are judges don't respect referees. They think of us as something less, unless you're a judge that needs to count on us doing our job to help them do their job. What really excites me is I'm the referee representative that has, or I'm sorry, I'm the representative from that committee that's on other state bar committees that have a larger policy influence when it comes to professionalism, civility, and ensuring ethics within our entire legal system. And because of my background, having worked at legal aid and with so many individuals that represent themselves because they're low income or disadvantaged, working with a lot of people that have disabilities in the course of my job, and you know, anybody can have a child and come into family court. So I see an awful lot of people coming through, regardless of their background or if they can speak English or what sort of job they have. And because of that breadth of experience, I make sure that when we do develop policies and directions as a state bar, that it encourages access for everybody to the legal system. And it's not just going to be a system that is going to help white, wealthy, straight people. I did a training for cultural competency with the referees through the Michigan Judicial Institute, which is the training arm of the state Supreme Court for judges, referees, and magistrates. And I did this past fall, I did a cultural competency training, and we talked about all sorts of different factors that people really need to think about when they have parties in front of them, and be more mindful about in how they treat people and treat situations. And one of the things that I wasn't sure how open some of my peers would be to me discussing, but was necessary, was talking not just about the LGBT population or the lesbian and gay population, but I also wanted to talk about the trans population, because we're seeing more and more people coming into the family court who are adults with children that are trans. And I've even seen cases on my own caseload where children are going through coming to terms with their own gender identity and sexual orientation. And parents sometimes aren't very open and accepting of that. And so we really have to be mindful of being open and doing what we have to protect and take care of those children, and respect the rights of parents that are queer or however they identify, because they need to be treated just like me, straight white woman, in my very comfortable situation. And I was pleasantly surprised that a couple referees came up to me afterwards and shared with me their own experiences with family members and why they were, they thought it was so important that I did go into that area and share some very personal details about one of my good friends and her son who transitioned when he was in high school. So.
I was muted. I was listening so intently. Thank you so much, Lori. I don't see any questions in the chat. Did anybody have a question for Lori? Well, so you were pretty comprehensive in describing what your background is, which certainly speaks to me. I worked in early childhood for forever, so it certainly speaks to me, and I love somebody who puts children first. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
You are very welcome. I wanted to share with you that I have a couple of recent endorsements that are very meaningful to me. Today I just got endorsed by Planned Parenthood Advocates of Michigan. And earlier in this week or last week, I got endorsed by Oakland Macomb Now. And I want to share that because it is really important. Those organizations aren't just women's organizations. They're also about justice issues like access to healthcare and economic barriers to women and their ability to take care of themselves and their families. The other thing I do want to mention, in case nobody realizes it, is in the state of Michigan, a teenager cannot get an abortion unless they get a parent's written consent or a judge's consent. And it's the family court judges that the teenager has to see to get the consent. So you want to make sure that you're going to have a judge who meets with those children that has 17 years of experience interviewing children already through the courts, who had 4 years of experience representing children and talking to them and explaining to them the court process and representing them, and is not going to make what's already a very difficult situation for them even more difficult. And unfortunately, I worked for a judge who did that. I was never in the room when he interviewed the teenagers, but I had heard from attorneys that represented the teens that it was a terrible experience. And I cannot imagine if it were myself as a teen or my daughter or my niece, hell, even somebody who I think is a total bratty kid, whoever it is, I cannot imagine what heartless person would do that. That is terrible. So I am pro-choice, and I think that that matters when it comes to family court. And we won't know until later this summer when the judges turn in their request in the family division if they want to leave. But one of the family division judges has already made that request last year when there's an opportunity to leave. She didn't have enough seniority, and I anticipate she's going to ask again. So I have great expectations that this is going to be a family division seat come January 1st or sometime thereafter, because there are judges that could leave if they choose to. And that's why I'm running for judge. I don't just want to be a judge. It's not about the title. It's about working for those children and those families. I'm Lori Savin, running for Oakland County Circuit Court Judge.
There we go.
Site, www.savinforjudge.com. You can reach out to me that way and get more information as well.
Well, your compassion and caring definitely comes through. So thank you so much.
Thank you for putting that up there, Constance.
Well, we have one more speaker who is very engaging, usually keeps us all very engaged and listening hard. And so having him go last is not really a bad thing because he will energize us. So I'm going to let Sherry do the introduction, and there she goes.
Andy Meisner, of course, is not a stranger and probably needs no introduction to Indivisible Huron Valley because Andy has visited our meetings before. When he came the last time, he came as a candidate, but it was before his primary opponent had filed. So there was one area that we didn't hear too much about, which I'm going to kind of nudge him in that direction since he has such a short amount of time tonight to speak to us. But we've heard so many good things from him before when he talked about his regional wellness centers and about his plans to rekindle mass transit in the Tri-County area. So I'm going to request of Andy that when he speaks tonight, if he wouldn't mind, to speak to kind of really the main question I think that all our members really need to know at this time as they go in to get their absentee ballots, because we hope everybody is doing that, and are ready to mark them, is that that you might take the time that you have tonight to distinguish your candidacy from your for county executive, Oakland County executive, from your opponent. Or to put it simply, why should we cast our vote for Andy Meisner?
Well, thank you, Sherry, and thank you for Elizabeth. I appreciate it. Sherry, great introduction, and it's so nice to be with you. I'm a big fan of Huron Valley Indivisible, and so I love the chance to spend a little time with you. I think I've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to be very concise. And I think that is an important question, is what makes me more qualified than my opponent to be our first elected Democratic county executive? And I think the list is long. One example of differences between us is that when COVID struck and we were forced to sacrifice at the county, I was first and only to take a voluntary pay cut because if people are going to experience cuts and there could be more coming, I'm a leader who believes that should start at the top. The same thing happened during the Great Recession and the housing crisis, when I not only took a pay cut, but I refused the county car, gas, and cell phone, because I don't think that public service is about perks. Another major difference is that I am the only candidate in the race with extensive full-time experience at the county level, state level, and federal level. I started my career on Capitol Hill where I was a policy advisor. So I have deep policy knowledge in a broad range of areas that my opponent lacks. I was a full-time state representative for 6 years. I wrote the state stem cell research law. I wrote the movie tax credits. And I also did a lot of work to promote public education and mental health. I chaired the Michigan House of Representatives Commerce Committee. My opponent has no state experience and no federal experience. And my 10 years experience as a full-time county treasurer is very different than my opponent's 10 months. During my 10 years, not only have I shared in sacrifice, but I've brought innovation and public policy that really helps people in need. We've helped 30,000 people save their home from foreclosure. I created a nationally innovative partnership with the Realtor Association to get foreclosed, abandoned properties connected with families that could use them. And so that's a contrast there as well, is that my career in public service has been characterized by dramatic transformational change. And I think that that's not the case with my opponent. He's been there, he's shown up, but hasn't delivered the sorts of results that we really need and that a place of great innovation like Oakland County has. Educationally, I've been blessed. I've had the opportunity to get my law degree. I did it at night while I was serving as a state representative. And that is another tool in my tool belt for public advocacy that distinguishes us. Now, let me get to brass tacks. More than anything, we Democrats in Oakland County need to get an elected Democratic county executive. And one of the biggest differences between me and my opponent, I have received 331,000 votes countywide for my position. My opponent got 11 votes from elected officials. I not only have run countywide 3 times, but I've run as the top vote-getting Democrat. And my opponent has never run countywide. And so that's why I think that I'm the candidate that gives us the best chance of electing a Democrat. And not only that, but also helping to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Something that I'm really passionate about is helping other candidates. And so a point of contrast with me and my opponent is that I have knocked thousands and thousands of doors and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for other candidates. I think that politics is a team sport. I've gone door to door for county commission candidates. And when I was a state representative, I chaired the campaign committee, which was the last time that we won the majority in the state house, a chance that we have today. And respectfully, my opponent's career has not been characterized in that way. He hasn't put in the time to help other folks in a way that I have. I think Karen Adams is on the call. I was thrilled to go out and do door to door with her. She is a dynamo. We were out in 2018, and she's going to get the job done this year. Other folks like Eileen Knowlton, who's running for trustee, has my full support. And so I want to be respectful of the time limit, but I think that the last thing that I would say is this, is that what innovative government requires is vision and leadership. And what I have that my opponent does not is a comprehensive vision for the future of Oakland County that is laid out in detail on my website. It addresses racial reconciliation. Just today, I added to my website a working agenda for our African-American brothers and sisters in Oakland County that addresses race, police reform, criminal justice reform. My policy platform also includes education, a county-wide promise, the regional health and wellness centers, a plan on gender equity, and I am honored to be endorsed by Oakland Macomb now, and to also have favorable rating from Planned Parenthood. And so that may be the biggest difference, is that I am showing you through my platform and my website what my plans are, but they're not just my plans, they're plans that I've developed through conversations with many of you and people across the county. And that is maybe the biggest one, because it's not the politics that makes a difference. It's not the politicians that make a difference. It's what we do when we get in positions of responsibility to help people. And I guess the last thing I would just say, and I would leave it at that. And I appreciate the opportunity. And, if time permits, I'll be happy to answer any questions. But hopefully you all know my email is andymeisner@gmail.com. My cell phone is 421-ANDY. That's 248-421-2639. And my website is voteandymeisner.com. And I urge you, go to my website and go to my opponent's website and see who's laying out a vision for our future that is deserving of such a fantastic county. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, so much for coming. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you giving them the time. Also, I understand congratulations are in order to you and your wife.
Well, we are expecting our third child. We have two boys, Asher and Levi. Asher's 7, Levi's 4, and God willing, we will be blessed on or around July 7th with a new baby. And so we're going to have some 4th of July fireworks of our own. But thank you for that, Sherry. The truth is we're both excited and nervous, to bring a baby into the world during such a scary time. But I still think it's a time of great hope and great opportunity.
Well, July 7th was my grandfather's birthday, and he was probably one of the most wonderful human beings that were ever placed on this earth. So,
can I ask what his name was? Because we're still looking for names.
I don't know if you want the name, Ralph. But I knew
some great Ralphs.
He was wonderful, and he lived to be just shy of 100. So it's a great day. And I knew if we had you go last, Andy, that you would keep us all awake and give us really good thoughts and good things to consider going forward. So thank you so much for your patience going so late in the meeting. I know people don't mind staying late, so if people have questions for Andy, please either start typing or unmute yourself and ask a question.
I have a question. It's Karen.
Karen
Adams. Yeah. Hi, Andy. Talking about the Sheriff's Department now, and I know we have 3 candidates running in the Democratic primary, but I'm very concerned and I'm hoping that we can get a Democrat in the Sheriff's office, because I think we need that, and I think we need some real change. In my teeny bit of interaction with that department, the officers, I'm not terribly impressed. And nothing bad happened to me. It wasn't even that. It's just, they didn't really care about the issue. I just wanted to know if you have a plan as to how we make sure that they are respecting everyone's rights, that they aren't escalating, but they're de-escalating, they're respectful, and they're actually helping the community.
Thank you, Karen. And my goodness, is she going to make a fantastic county commissioner, and great knowledge on so many issues, interest in broadband, Phragmites, and so many other issues. But Karen, I'd love for you to go to my website, because I lay out in detail what needs to happen. And let me mention just a few things. 1, we have to have a zero tolerance policy on police brutality and racial discrimination and association with hate groups. Law enforcement is supposed to be public service. And in order for you to be in public service, you have to have a servant's heart. A person with a servant's heart would have never done what that animal did to George Floyd. And so part of the strategy is to stop people with that sort of a background or that sort of a racist or extremist view from getting into law enforcement, but also following them closely to see if they develop any associations that really disqualify them from being in public safety. In addition, we need to keep tabs on their mental health. There's a great power that is entrusted in public safety officers. And somebody who has mental health conditions or personality disorders that could make them susceptible to abuse and brutality, they can't be there either. I was a criminal justice advisor to a congressperson on Capitol Hill, and I was also the vice chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee in the House of Representatives in Lansing. And one of the things that we know empirically is that prevention works in public safety. So we need to fundamentally transform our philosophy from law enforcement to public safety. And we need to invest resources in policies that actually work. Rolling down the street in a tank does not work. But community-oriented policing that involves building genuine partnerships and dialogue with the public that people are supposed to be serving and protecting, that works. And then when there's an issue that comes up, you have a strong relationship of trust where you can have dialogue and problem resolution, but you can't do that if you're being patrolled by military equipment and helicopters flying low overhead. And so those are just a few of the changes that I am proposing. And, you know, we cannot let this opportunity go. Eric Garner, was killed in New York, and there was a bit of a national uproar about it, and then it quieted down. But what we need to do is we need to stay in this conversation until the policy change that we need is adopted. And I will do that as county executive. And, you know, Brooks Patterson was not shy about using the bully pulpit of the office of county executive. Now, he used it for the wrong reasons. Many times he used it to advance racist ideas, misogynist ideas, anti-immigrant and xenophobic ideas. But I'm going to use it for the opposite. And I'm going to use it to make sure that we crack down on any of these practices, whether it's at the sheriff's or even at the local departments. He was a big mouth. I can be a big mouth in a good way and call out bad behavior when it happens. And I was out at the rallies all weekend and look forward to participating in more, but we've got to make this moment last. And Nomi can share, we have started a bi-weekly virtual town hall meeting with friends from across the county. The next one's going to be Friday, I think the 19th at 4 o'clock, so that we can continue this dialogue and get to action, because we have failed. We have failed our African-American men and women and our people of color, who we owe to step in. Candidly, we have to use our white privilege and leverage that for policy change right now. And we've just been too comfortable. We need to fix that. And we can do it.
Hey, Andy, do you see any movement to create some sort of task force to send to individual police departments to see if their policies are in line with what the county would see is healthy police work?
Well, I don't see that yet, but I am proposing that as a part of my platform, which would include not only a county-wide standard on use of force, but would also involve the creation of civilian oversight over each of the departments and the sheriff. Because we just know that while there are many people in public safety who are well-meaning, there are many who are not. And we know that there is this thin blue line that exists where something happens and a fellow police officer sees it and wants to protect his or her partner. And that's what has been happening. That's what happened with George Floyd. These other three officers just stood around there. And so we need that oversight to make sure that all of our public safety officers are reminded that their job is public safety, not murder, not police brutality, not harassing people of color. So it's a long way of saying yes. I'm sorry for the answer was so long, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really needed now.
Yeah, not there now, but part of my platform and desperately needed to just change the entire culture. And I think I've got some experience with that. I totally changed the culture of the treasurer's office. Before I came in there, it was kind of bureaucratic. It wasn't so friendly. If you walked in, you might have gotten a dirty look. And we transformed the culture. I made it friendly, compassionate, humble. And those are some of the traits that we need to characterize our public safety departments. And there's going to be bad guys, and we want our public safety officers to get the real bad guys. But, that's just not what's happening. Right now, there's just a lot of inappropriate activity happening and illegal activity. And we just got to tear it out at the root and not stop till we finish the job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
I had a little follow-up question, if that's okay. It's
One
Karen
more
again.
question, Karen.
All right, I'm sorry. So I think one of the big problems, especially with local police departments, is they become revenue generators instead of public safety. It's how much revenue can we generate because of all the ridiculous tax cuts. And so I want to know what we can do to stop that, as a county, because I'd like to work on that too.
Yeah, it's a great question. And that's very true. And we've seen in communities across Oakland County that has happened and that motorists have been targeted and victims of racial profiling. And there are even some folks that have joked about it. But the fact is that if you use the principles of criminal justice that work, like community-oriented policing, like drug treatment courts. When I was a state representative, I wrote a law for Michigan called for drug treatment courts, which take people who are drug addicted and mentally ill and take them out of the criminal justice system and into treatment. 70 or 80% of the people that are locked up in the country are there because of drugs, alcohol, and mental illness, or some combination thereof. And a drug court only costs about $2,500 a year and can have up to a 90% success rate. It costs about $40,000 to incarcerate somebody for a year, and the Michigan Department of Corrections has a fail rate or a recidivism rate of over 50%. And so instead of trying to gin up revenue through tickets, we need to fundamentally adjust the model. And we should not, and part of it is making sure that Lansing doesn't shortchange local communities with revenue sharing. But it's just a perverse incentive. And the idea that many police departments have monthly quotas on the number of tickets that they're supposed to give, that's a broken model, and it needs to be replaced.
I always feel, Andy, that these are all really heavy topics, and yet when you talk to them, I come away feeling positive. So you have a wonderful, wonderful way of approaching incredibly heavy, important topics, but leaving us feeling like there is a way to move forward. And I always feel so positive after listening to you. So I'm sure I'm not the only one, but my mic is on, so I can talk. So our next meeting is July 8th. So we expect maybe we'll hear about little Ralph at that point. You can send Nomi to the meeting. I'm sure you'll be busy, but you can send Nomi to the meeting and fill us in on how, you got a lot of moms and grandmas sitting here, you know, and grandpas, and we need to know this stuff, you know.
And you're going to expect pictures, so make sure you
Yes, we are going to expect multiple pictures, so. But thank you all for being so generous with your time, and members for staying late. I know we had a lot packed in, a lot to assimilate.
Madam Chair, can I just mention quickly that we have—
Madam Chair, I've never been called that. Sure, okay, go.
We have lawn signs that are available.
We put that out on our Facebook page.
And let me be clear that I very much am asking for your votes this year. And I wanted to just mention one other thing that is a little bit unexpected, but the appointment of the interim exec ends on election day. So when we go to vote for executive, there are actually going to be 2 boxes that are going to look like this. There's going to be let me see here. Okay. There's going to be 1 box for the full term, which is going to be January 1st. I don't know if can you see that better?
It's good, it's good. Yep.
January 1st for 4 years. There's also going to be a partial term, and this is stupid, but there's a partial term from election day in November through December 31st.
And that's information most of us do not know. So thank you for sharing that. That's
so
information we can pass along when we're canvassing and stuff.
Yeah, so when you make that decision, you'll have to vote twice for the full term and the partial term. I would be honored to have your support for both. And I also just wanted to mention that we have lawn signs that are available, and we have friend-to-friend postcards. And if there's anybody that would care to either get a lawn sign or send some friend-to-friend postcards. Oh, and Denise Forrest, I didn't see you there. Our fantastic candidate in the 44th, who is going to the State House.
Yes, she
and is going to help us get the majority. I'm sorry that I was on speaker view, Denise. I didn't see you, and I hope I didn't miss any other candidates. But
no problem, you're forgiven.
But we would love to get your lawn sign, get you some friend-to-friend postcards, and we're doing phone calls. We're doing all sort of voter outreach. Probably no door-to-door at this point, but maybe some lit drops depending on the CDC guidance. So sorry for that, but I just wanted to share that as well. And Nomi has got all that information as well.
I know Nomi just sent us a post for our Facebook page on the lawn sign. So that went up today, I think. So we're getting it going. All right. And I thank you all for hanging in there. I know it's a long evening, but I think it was worth it. So
good job, everybody. Good job.
This has been taped, and it will be up on our YouTube channel. So if anybody missed it, they'll be able to find it.